When we say developing a city, nobody really gets a chance to design a city from scratch, but what we can do is we can plan the infrastructure for new developments. A lot of the time we're actually working on existing cities such as London, where you've got little pockets of development that we have to work on. But the nice thing is that whether it's a very, very small project or it's a city, as long as you've got the same kind of philosophy of trying to make the world a better place, then it doesn't matter what the scale is. As long as you introduce those kind of holistic ideas into the development, you should get a better city.
For us, it all starts with legitimacy. It's about when you try and bring a new development to a specific area, it's only legitimate to the extent that you can justify it to that community. And by justifying it, you can show them why it would be a good thing to introduce into that neighborhood. But I think what we wanted to do with this notion of eudaimonia, this notion of the urban good life, is to actually take the discussion a little bit further and say, well, we can choose to look at sustainability from a very narrow perspective, which is the ecological perspective, and that's super important in itself. But unless you manage to bring in other kinds of sustainability, unless you manage to bring in a way of, let's say, having a real dialogue with the community and creating something for the community that they can actually use, then you're not going to achieve your goals, because then it's just you trying to impose something on the consumer. When a project really takes off is when you have the dialogue with the consumer and you give them a product that they want, because everyone wants to live in a more sustainable way these days, because we know this is the way that we can give a real, let's say, a clean planet to our children and our grandchildren.
We're probably known for a lot of our transport projects, and that certainly is something that we've been working on quite a lot. I think where we can really benefit and really begin to look at is the quality of the spaces we have, the kind of the stations themselves. I mean, they are parts of the community. They go kind of dark during the day and at night, and really they're always in prominent positions. And I always think that there's always a lot of area around them. I mean, there could be all sorts of things. I'm talking about, there could be shops and creches and things like that, but also they normally they have big car parks. I mean, there could be something you could do with either energy generation. It could be like a little battery for the community. The problem in this country is that our franchise agreements with the rail companies deals with, they're checked for frequencies of service. Are you late? Are you on time? That kind of thing. They don't look at the quality of their environment. I think TfL have only recently got them to put in, do you have a working toilet? So actually the quality of the environment is never measured. We compare ourselves with other kind of mid-range cities that don't have the levels of the density of population we have, but by the same token they rely on cars, whereas we don't. I think we've got a very good transport network. London's a very easy place to get around by comparison. If you go even to New York, you rely on cabs and things, whereas or Melbourne, which I've done a lot of work in, it has a veneer of trams and connected networks, but it relies on the car. So I think London's in a good place.
Well, in terms of noise pollution, I think airborne sounds, whether it's a siren or a car going past or a motorbike, I think it is pollution really. It's because if you can't have a coherent conversation with somebody who's standing right next to you, then it really does make your life a little bit more stressful, I would say. As people, we're very attuned to having a quiet, dark period of time at night where we can unwind. Living in a city can be quite busy and stressful. And I think as designers what we need to do is to realise that and to try and shape the city more so that we can attune ourselves to having more of a quiet, restful periods, periods of contemplation, places to take ourselves away, especially at night, and to kind of unwind. That's very important.
One thing is to bring community into the river, but what we're also obviously looking at, and what we've achieved to a certain extent already now, is ways of extracting from the river some of the energy that's constantly being generated there, you know. And I think that's one of the things that we would very much like to work on in the future, is to try and see if you can get this community that you were hoping to build to actually contribute in a positive way to the generation of electricity and to the generation of power, in the sense that you actually create these small hubs that in time will be able to generate so much energy that they can actually not only take care of their own energy needs, but even feed energy back into the grid. And you know, once you start going down that route, once you start looking at the ways that nature can provide for us in the 21st century, I think then this is the moment that you start approaching something that's really interesting.